Here we are. Ignore that last minute. Get your Pythagoras to Mars. Why would we call our talk such a ridiculous thing? As you know, the topic that we've been asked to talk about is work, and I guess for myself and Gems, what we do every day, it's all about ideas. It's ideas, 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 and there's the expected, the usual, the known, but what our challenge all the time generally is to find that new angle. What's that new angle? So if the expected, the known is a kind of perfect equilateral triangle, what we have to do is kind of come along and go and find some kind of new way of talking to people, getting a message across, solving a client problem. So apologies to Ellsworth Kelly, whose piece of fine art I've just mutilated. So let's start off by thinking about, this is the age of the pivot. This is kind of, when we look at tech companies, we can see that there are a lot of well-known tech companies that are pivoting. They're finding a completely new angle suddenly on what they're doing in order to achieve great success. So let's, before we go into our work and our thoughts on finding a new angle, let's look at a few examples there.
So, can anyone tell me which tech company this started out as? Anyone? So this game never ending used to be Flickr. So they were making this site. It was a role-playing game, and they were doing, you could go around your little world and buy and sell items. But what they discovered was the uploading, the photo side of things was the most interesting bit, and loads of people were using that. So they thought it'd be better if we just focused on photos and the tagging functionality of photos, and Flickr was born.
Another example. Anyone know this one? What did this turn into? Anyone? Instagram. So Instagram started as Bourbon, a check-in app with gaming features, other functionalities. Just one little bit of it was photos and photo sharing. Luckily, the creators, realized early on enough that, having an app with so many different functions just wasn't going to gain traction. So they focused in on photo sharing, and the rest is history. Another one. Anyone know what this turned into? Toad? So this became Pinterest. It started off as a retail browsing and sort of shopping and sharing kind of site. It was all about e-commerce originally. But the creators realized that actually the users were really actively kind of gathering and building collections of stuff they loved. It was all about aspiration as opposed to actually buying stuff. So they focused on that. They turned it into the collection sharing aspect that we know Pinterest has today. And interestingly enough now, their challenge is they've become huge. They've got 70 million users or whatever it is. And now they're trying to work out how can they get back to e-commerce and actually making money out of all of their users.
This is a biggie. Does anyone know this one? So audio used to be Twitter. So they started off, they were compiling all the podcasts out there, and then iTunes came along, and they're like, oh heck, now what do we do? So they had a brainstorm just in one day, and one guy chipped in with, why not create a microblogging platform, and that became Twitter. So these are all companies where they've all been going along on one tack, and halfway through they've just had to work out what is working really well and change direction.
So that's great. Well done, all those super huge, famous tech companies that are worth billions. But what about us in our day-to-day lives in creative industries? You know, what can we do? How the fuck can we screw with our equilateral triangles? If you think of a normal brief that lands on your desk day to day being a kind of a regular, normal equilateral triangle, how can you find that new angle? So, ask for help is one of our thoughts. You know, when you've been given the brief, your immediate reaction is, oh, right, this is all on me. It's all, you know, the shoulders start to weigh down. It's like, this brief, it's just me, I have to solve it. You know, but you're not alone. Don't be proud, ask for help. So back in 2005, quite a while ago, we are starting with some quite old stuff. We get a bit more recent later on in the talk. So back in 2005, Radio 1 listener figures were taking a nosedive, basically, and we were briefed to reach a new, younger audience, to showcase the huge range of music that Radio 1 plays, to attract a younger audience, to make it more relevant again to a younger audience. And they wanted us to do this through online banner advertising. But we knew immediately that specifically that young audience just paid no attention to online banner advertising. So we knew we needed to find a new angle. So we created Music Cubes, which was a world first branded widget. And this was all thanks to a collaboration with a creative techie. So we involved this creative tech in our sort of concepting phases, and he pointed us towards MySpace. Does anyone remember MySpace? Yeah. Well, back in 2005, not many people had heard of it. It was only really just getting going. That's where the youth were spending time, kind of sharing sparkly GIFs, you know, writing on each other's walls, kind of talking nonsense. And it was all about, essentially MySpace was the first iteration of the brand of me in the online space. And one key thing that they were doing at that time was copying and pasting HTML code in order to feature music videos within their walls as one of the ways of saying, this is what I'm all about, this is me, this is what I like. So we picked up on that insight and made a kind of a sort of special widget that could be personalised. Oh, hang on. Sorry, we'll go to play. We've got a little film here. Now the sound on this is terrible, so I'll turn the volume down.
2005, you have to imagine.
Yeah, I'm going to skip forward. It's also, this case study video is really not very, takes ages. So basically, is it playing? Yeah. So you went to a site, basically you chose from a range of genres and sub-genres within those genres, your favourite types of music. You built up your Music Cube tower, which was your musical DNA. You then got delivered a unique piece of code, which you could copy and paste into your MySpace page, which then appeared for all your friends to see as kind of specifically your musical DNA. And within that tower, you could actually interact with it, go into each genre of music and listen to the most recent Radio 1 shows that had played that type of music recently. So it was, you know, it had great functionality. It was delivering music to people, but it was also representing who these guys were as people at this time when that was just really a burgeoning aspect of online networks.
So that wouldn't have come about if we hadn't just asked for help. So this is another one back then, and it was for the G8 summit in Scotland. We won this brief for the Financial Times called the world's toughest brief. And then we won it, and I was like, oh heck, how are we going to make this? And the brief was to spread the word about this G8 rally. So people were going to rally, they were going to say, you know, we need to cancel debt in poor countries around the world. So we realised instead of just spreading the word about this G8 rally, we'll make something that's actually useful as well. So people who couldn't attend the rally could be there in a virtual sense. So this was the sort of first virtual rally. At that time it hadn't really been done before. And also it collected signatures for that was added to the Make Poverty History petition. So Bob Geldof and Bono and everyone was involved. So users could sign up and personalise their character. That's neat. And then you could leave a message on your placard as if you're there. And we just thought it'd be good fun to show this one because it's Edinburgh. And populate Edinburgh. And it was the days before online petitions like 38 Degrees or Avas. But what we discovered was we won this thing and it's like, hell, how are we going to make this in the time? We had about 2 weeks. So we asked our rival agencies, Glue and AKQA. We did the creative direction, art direction. Glue did the back end and AKQA did the front end. So as together we came together and made this in a short amount of time. Opposite attracts. So one technique to use maybe is when you have your triangle and it's a bit too equilateral, you just flip the whole thing. You do the complete opposite. It's like BBH and their famous motto, when others zig, zag. So we were asked to do a site for Mercedes, and in those days, this is way back as well, 2005, all the websites were just sort of brochure-style car porn, basically. Very limited interactivity, not very involving, just shiny metals with the cars looking nice. So what did we do? We did the opposite. We didn't show the car at all. We made it highly interactive, and we communicated the message through touch, as if you were in the car. You know, there were no augmented reality in those days. So you could get the feeling of actually being there.
Yeah, so with this one, we wanted to showcase the key message was the incredible attention to detail that runs throughout the Mercedes range. So from the cheapest A-Class to the most expensive S-Class, there are all these amazing facts about the way Mercedes makes cars that are true of all the models. So they wanted to sell more cars to younger people. So the cheaper models are more affordable to younger people. Therefore, let's express what's all the amazing stuff about Mercedes true throughout. So we made a really highly interactive site. Didn't show cars at all. Communicating key points through bespoke interactivity. So this example, the olfactory sensualists or the perfume ladies, as they're more commonly known, are employed solely to test the smell in each car so that you'll have a pleasant aroma come rain or shine. These facts, again, true of all the models. And I guess, there's amazing kind of facts about them. They even have an ostrich farm in Brazil, for example, where they grow ostrich, they raise ostriches just to harvest the feathers, because those feathers are the best feathers for picking up tiny particles on the metalwork before the cars get painted. Incredible amount of effort goes into making sure that...
But that's on all the models.
Oh, yeah, exactly. And so it was interesting that actually, because there was so much interactivity, it's so bespoke, it's so advanced at the time, we had to work with we found, at the time, the best Flash coder in the world, and he happened to live in New Zealand, so we were working with him. By the beach. So he'd be doing his coding while we were asleep. We'd get his code back the next day and feed back to him, and it was great. And it was interesting that because it took so long to get all the interaction really right, we actually had to launch with only half of the letters available to use. But funnily enough, the public seemed to take this as some kind of genius marketing ploy. And they were all talking about it, saying, well, how clever to make us sort of return to the site at a later date to see the rest of the letters. Actually, we just hadn't had time to finish it. Anyway, so that was lucky. So yeah. All right, so how about, sometimes you've got a few ideas for the brief, and the problem isn't necessarily finding a new angle. The problem is you've got a few ideas that you like, right? How do you choose which one to do? So, well, sometimes if you can't choose, don't choose. Do them all. Before we got into advertising full-time, we used to make music videos together. And so this is an example of a music video we made for Belle and Sebastian. And I guess the idea here was that it's very much a storytelling song, as you'll hear in a minute when I play you the music video. It's told from the point of view of Stevie, one of Belle and Sebastian. It's set in the 60s, and so we made a 60s version of the story, and then we also made a 70s version, which was kind of like him looking back 10 years later on what happened in his life. So I'll show you the full 60s version, and then we'll just show a few snippets of the 70s version so you can kind of see how different they were. Oh, that didn't work. Here we go. So everyone got a nice tear in their eye now, hopefully. I'm sure some of you have been there in that kind of scenario. I mean, I guess the thing is, this was quite amazing because there was not a lot of money in music videos, and Belle and Sebastian aren't, well, they're pretty well known, but they're not like mega rich on a huge label and stuff. So to make 2 videos for the budget we had was really pushing it, but this was a bit of this, I'll skip into it, a bit of the 70s version. I won't show it all, but you can find it somewhere online. But yeah, so it's interesting, the 70s version, obviously completely different look, feel, tone, with Stevie looking back, and also we wanted to get the rest of the band in. There's loads of them in Belle and Sebastian, so it was nice to get them all into this sort of weird 70s freak show of Stevie being the sort of musician who's made it with all his acolytes. And yeah, so I mean, I guess back to the point, sometimes a new angle can be doing more than one thing. So on to the next thought, play them at their own game. You know, sometimes you really need to find a good new angle. Just think about your audience, you know, put the brief to the side, think about what do they actually care about, forgetting what we're trying to achieve, what we're trying to communicate. What do they really want, you know? Can you twist your equilateral triangle into a shape that will appeal to your audience? So in 2010, we were asked to create buzz amongst hardcore gamers to help launch Killzone 2, which was the follow-up to Killzone, funnily enough, for a PlayStation. So, you know, gamers, what are they into? Well, they're into games, right? It's not rocket science, and they're wildly competitive. So we made a game, complete with leaderboard and co-op. So we made a game to promote a game. And I'll play this video, but I'll skip forward because it goes on a bit, and it's a bit over the top. Hang on, here we go.
There's a lot of killing.
There's a lot of killing in Killzone.
The time has come to stand up and be counted. Enroll now, assemble your squad, and help us wipe the hell gas from the face of the internet. It's worldwide war.
So basically, yeah, it's really over the top, this case study. Basically, the idea here was to make a browser plugin that you installed into your browser, which essentially allowed the Hellgast, the evil baddies in the game, to attack you, ambush you as you were surfing the internet randomly. You could be shopping on Amazon, you turn on Google, suddenly the Hellgast would appear and start shooting at you. Your mouse pointer would turn into a target that you would have to find the box. There was also a co-op option, so that you could form a squad with 3 other friends, and if you got attacked, you could actually ask your friends to come and help you if they were online live to defeat the enemy. So it's kind of a completely new thing at the time. Browser plugins existed, but they were all being used for very sort of straightforward, simple functions. Never been used in a kind of that's a bit wrong, but it's just games, right? It's killing the health. Okay. and it did really well. I think it's almost a break. It was a short film in different titles. So as you can see there, although we didn't get millions of people actually downloading, installing the browser plugin, the chat maybe, however, and they made a lot of noise about it, which is what we were asked to do, right? To hype up the launch of the game. So that was a good one.
Well, don't need to say anything else about that, really. So there's a psychological thing called pareidolia, and it's the connections our brains make where we perceive a meaning where there's none. So it's a good example of this is icy faces. So it's an existing behaviour, people are already sharing it. So what happens if you mash up a bit of filthy with pareidolia? So our brief was to promote French Connection's Spring-Summer collection at Lost Boys this year on social. So we're getting a bit better at case study films now. So I think I'll just...
it's very tricky to... Can you just click it? So sometimes you get a brief and actually the answer to the problem is actually maybe quite straightforward. Maybe your triangle is equilateral and that's fine. You've just got the answer. You know what to do. But in such situations, you need to remember that you still need to get a twist in there somewhere, especially when it comes to storytelling. Otherwise, you won't really have a new angle. What's going to be interesting about it, even if the answer's obvious. So we've got another much more recent example here where we were asked to drive pre-launch interest in the new HRV for Honda through social channels across Europe. And the client brief here was that the car fits perfectly into your life. So our team in the Edinburgh office came up with this lovely, simple insight that in most garages throughout Europe, they're just full of crap. You can hardly get anything in there, let alone a car. And so we made this little film to bring that thought to life. even the simplest stories should still have some sort of little nice twist in the tale.
What was nice about that is the TV ad where they spent, how much? A lot.
I dare not say on film.
Yeah. And the client really loved that, so that was good. It's possible we've been helping you with this already, but actually it's really important to be bored. Why?
Yeah, so I guess here's an example, another pretty recent piece of work where the Drum magazine, you probably all heard of it, asked Lost Boys to launch a new advertising awards show that they're running called the Drum Dream Awards. And all the work, all the best work that gets shown and judged at these awards is, they all stem from the big breakthrough idea. We had a few pointers here that, the Dream Awards, the fact that it's called the Dream Awards, and, quite simply linked up for us that, generally creative people tend to be dreamers, daydreamers. And in fact, in regard to get bored, being bored is a precursor to daydreaming, right? If you pick up your phone the whole time when you're got nothing to do in spare moments, you're not bored. You may be bored looking through your news feed, but we look at phones, we look at screens all day long, we're answering emails, and actually it's really important that you let yourself fall down that rabbit hole in your mind, and actually, your brain will start to entertain yourself and start thinking about things. So, that thing we're all told not to do as a kid, to sort of daydream and stare out the window, is actually incredibly useful.
So who would have thought it that your brain consumes more energy whilst it's daydreaming than when it's focused? Because apparently huge swathes of cortex are all zooming around and they're communicating and interacting, and you're mashing up new associations, and you don't do that when you're focused. You have to let your brain go crazy and have that time to zone out. So for people in creative industry, it's very important to just daydream. It's been scientifically proven.
So one of the guys who has scientifically proven this is this guy, John Kunios. And he's done experiments where he's rigged people up to an EEG machine, which is like a swimming cap with loads of wires coming out of it, to measure all the electricity waves going through your brain as you think in different stages of thinking. And he found he could predict up to 8 seconds in advance whether or not someone was going to have a moment of insight, that eureka moment. And he did this by focusing on measuring the alpha waves, which have been shown to be very closely associated with being chilled out, being relaxed, being bored. And basically with alpha waves, the good thing about them is the more of them you get, the more likely you are to solve creative problems, is what he found. So basically, for all of us working in creative industries, alpha waves are your friend. You need to look after them, you need to nurture them, take them for a walk, give them presents. How do you do that? Well, you do things like you go for a walk, you take a long hot shower, you relax on the sofa and literally do nothing. You watch Antiques Roadshow maybe, or you come and watch our talk at CreativeMornings perhaps.
So another thinker about thinking is this guy, Jonah Loher, and he said, we need to make time to waste time. In other words, you have to organise yourself so you can just be doing bugger all. And then you'll have hopefully those great ideas, because you can truly relax. And he also said drinking booze is great for coming up with ideas, because we all have ideas in the pub, but we can't be in a drunken stupor all the time.
Or can we?
Oh, can we? Screenwriter Aaron Sorkin apparently has up to 6 showers a day. He wrote The West Wing and things, just so he can get his alpha waves going nuts.
Not because he's smelly necessarily.
No, not because he's smelly.
So back to this campaign for Drum Dream Awards. Once you've relaxed, chilled out, laying on the sofa, once you've had your idea, then you actually you do need to wake up, smell the coffee, get focused, and make something happen. So that's why we can't be drunk all the time. But you do at some point need to go. So here's Laura Jordan Bambach, former president of DNAD, very well-known ECD of Mr. President. One of the well-known creative directors we got to star in our series of ads to promote the Dream Awards, with this thought of sort of heroing well-known creative directors with their heads in the clouds, basically saying, dreamers wanted time to get your head out of the clouds and enter the Drum Dream Awards. So we're kind of doing both there, the dreaming part and the time to wake up and smell the coffee and enter these awards. So as part of this campaign, we had a tease phase on Twitter. We had a whole load of sort of surreal kind of images inspired by Twin Peaks. Hopefully you'll get that reference if you're old enough. We built a set in the basement of our London office, and we filmed a whole load of films down there featuring different creative directors. They're all available still online on the Drum Dream Awards website to have a look at. They're quite interesting. They featured these creative directors talking to a supposed dream analyst called Dr. Saracenia, and they were describing some of their most famous pieces of work as though they were dreams, which was quite an interesting sort of little game to play with the audience. Can you guess what famous ad this is from the Dream? And one of the ads featuring Rosie Arnold from BBH was featured on the cover of the Drum, which was nice. So that's it from us, really. Get bored, twist it around, watch the Antiques Roadshow, do the opposite, add some filth, and then ask for help. Easy. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much. Denise, can you hit the light behind you? Just so we're... Here we go. I'm sure we have a few questions. I have a question for you first. Those first kind of projects where you're kind of putting together these videos for Belle and Sebastian, do you still have time for that kind of sort of raw creativity now?
Don't have time for anything.
It's difficult. We get asked occasionally, and it's tricky when you're sort of running an agency and you've got children to kind of find time to do anything, even to put a talk together for something like this, unfortunately not as much as we'd like to, but
it feels the energy is still there. The projects, like you say, they're incredible, but like you say, there's not a lot of CGI, millions and millions go into them, so it feels like there's still that nice rawness. So
we've still got tiny budgets.
But that makes you. That's part of the creative challenge, isn't it? The tiny budget. So how do you make something fantastic when the budget is, increasingly less and less? Clients are getting more and more kind of tight with their money and expecting more and more for less money. So it's increasingly the challenge falls to the creative department to solve that problem.
Do you have any questions from the audience? I know we've got a lot of agency people today.
What did you move from music videos? I know that there's not much budget with straight to advertising. Or were you advertising before the music videos and the music videos said, let's go back up? What was your path?
It was a bit of both, because it's a good question, because usually you hear about advertising creatives who then start to become directors and do that, and we sort of we did the other thing.
We did the opposite.
It was interesting though. When we first went down to London with our book, and we were going around different agencies, we had 3 portfolios. We had Gemma's art portfolio, we had my music video show reel, and we had our advertising book, and we could almost tell within the first few minutes whether an agency would be the type of agency that was for us, even if they were, maybe interested in offering us a job or not, which turned out they weren't for ages. but the agencies that said, no, not interested in those two, just show me your ads, then we would know, well, this place isn't open-minded enough, it's not for us.
It was all, show me 3 press ads and a script. 3 press ads and the scripts then.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, it was to do with money, you know. Music videos is, you know, it partly to do with money, you know. Unless you become Michel Gondry, you know, within a few years, then it's very difficult to survive.
But
just
when you
making
with
music.
Michel Gondry on the list?
But yeah, well, that was the highlight of my career, wasn't it? Yeah, I was signed to Partisan Midi Minuit at one point, which is a fantastic production company, and they had a list of all their directors. And just because my surname happened to be next to Gondry, so I was next to Gondry on the list. I was like, I've made it. Not that anyone knew who I was, but yeah, that was good.
When you guys go for job, when you went for job interviews, do you always, you're a team, you were never going to accept 2 different jobs? Was that, what was that like?
Well, yeah, we've always worked together, apart from that brief period in about 2011.
When I have 2 children,
Yeah.
not at the same time. Yeah.
But
So yeah, we are freaks of nature. We're sort of together and then we're a team. But we've always worked like that. So
we're just used to it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think it freaks everyone else out more than it freaks us out. Definitely.
How did you find each other, and what drew you towards each other creatively?
we worked at the film festival in Edinburgh, driving around in a van, putting up posters. And Gav had a love of film, and I did fine art, so we just thought.
I was talking about ideas and stuff. Originally, that was it, really. Yeah.
And have you ever tried working with other creators, or have you just stayed loyal to each other?
No, we're always working with other creatives, yeah, and other creative teams, and we look after different clients now, and yeah, so we're not really a team anymore, but yeah, we work together.
When we have time, it's good to try and concept together and stuff like that. But but in terms of our career, we have pretty much been a team, either a creative team or a creative director team for most of our career. Yeah.
And then sometimes we get pissed off with one another.
Yeah. Well, I think it's actually our team who sometimes can suffer the most, because if Gems is on a job and says, do it like this, and then a few days later, like, why are you doing it like that? Do it like this. So, feel for them sometimes.
Well, on that note, we'll move on. Thank you so much.